everyone, it's Imogen and welcome back to Colouring Kids. I hope you're all doing well. So in today's video I'm going to be doing the first in what I hope to be quite a long series, which is going to be called Colouring Quandaries. So I had a lot of requests to share how I pick my colour combinations, how I start out a page, kind of just my thought process of how I go about doing a page, because we all have it. I definitely do, where I really want to colour a page but I just don't know where to start. Some of these videos will be sharing my process partway through a page, like we're going to be doing today. Some of them will be initially starting a page, but I'll talk about why I've chosen to do this video when I'm midway through this, because there is a reason for that. If you do have any specific questions about your pages, your colour combinations, please feel free to email me, but equally share it down in the comments, because there is so much knowledge in this community, and you know, my thoughts on a colour to add or a colour combination is just one opinion. And you know, I always do pages where sometimes I'm not really happy with the colour combination, and at the end of the day it's just about having fun. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, just feel free to ask. You know, we all have different ways of going about pages. So I did mention when I wanted to do this series that I would mostly be working out of the I Believe in Fairies Colouring Postcards by Clara Markova and Mine Ariza der Europa by Rita Berman. So today we're going to be working out of I Believe in Fairies by Clara Markova. I will be coming back to Rita Berman's books. This was just the page that I had started because we're coming up to Valentine's Day and it's still a wintry page, and it was one that I wanted to do. So yeah, this is what I've got so far. Some of it may be quite hard to pick up on camera, but the reason I'm sharing it midway through is because I am kind of stuck with where to go next, and I think sometimes voicing my thoughts will make it easier somehow. So I'll kind of just talk you through what I've done so far, my process of initially starting the page. This won't be so much a colour combinations video. That's something that I am doing now, but I'll share those at the end of every month. This is more my process and how I picked the colours, rather than what pencil, what specific colour I'm using. I hope that makes sense, just so that you can kind of apply this to any page, hopefully. So when I first saw this page, I initially thought, great, you know, gingerbread people, I'm going to go for a gingerbread sort of colour. And I do feel like, for me, over the years, I've done different sorts of colours. I found a colour combination that I really liked that I did with Crayola, actually, and I just can't seem to replicate it in the same way. And also, I didn't think they would work that well on card, because they're quite hard. I used Castle Art pencils and I was actually really pleased with how it turned out. So brown was the colour that I knew I wanted on the page, so I started out with the brown. I always think it's, for me, when I start a page, it's easy to start with the things that you know already. If you have no idea about what colours you want to do, think about like realistically what a colour would be. So if you are stuck, say you've got a page of flowers and you don't know, you could either search up actual pictures of flowers, take inspiration from that. Think realistically, well, most leaves are green, so you could do your leaves green first and that might spark some inspiration. I use loads of like resources in terms of books for colour inspiration and colour palettes, and using Google to search images. And I didn't use it for this particular page, but I have done a lot, and I do have videos on my channel about that sort of thing. But yeah, I started with what I knew, and I started with the gingerbread colour, and then I like to do the background pretty soon into my page. Usually I don't usually leave it until last, because I quite like doing it and then knowing what's left. Sometimes, occasionally, depending what the background is, I'll leave it till last. If it's a soft pastel background or something like that, that's going to be really quick and easy to do afterwards, I'll do it. Or if I'm not sure on a background, I'll leave it. But in this particular instance, I knew I wanted it to be pink. So I started, I think I used Holbein's for this. And yeah, I knew I wanted this kind of dusky pink colour. And I do tend to use pencil for all of my backgrounds for these, just because they're not really big areas, so it's easy to fill with colour. So I did find once I'd done that, it just immediately makes other things pop out. So far on my page, I have brown and pink. And what I didn't want to do was start adding too many more colours until I kind of evenly spread out the colour. Again, this isn't something that I always do, but I'm kind of explaining my process for this particular page, if that makes sense. So if I just visualise it for you, so far I've got pink, and trying to find the brown that I used. I've literally got all of my pencils out. Okay, yeah, and then I used lots of different browns, but essentially this sort of colour to get my gingerbread people. And then I thought about, okay, well, what would work with that? What would work before I start adding a green, which I know I do want, and I will come to that. And I thought, well, I'd quite like some red in there, and I could play around with a darker brown. This cake, I wasn't sure whether to do it kind of a sandy brown like a normal cake colour, or do it a chocolate cake, and I did think about both options. The thing that I came to was that if I did it too light, it would be really similar and wouldn't stand out because it's similar to the gingerbread colour. So I went for a darker colour in the end, which I'm really glad I did. So you can see it's just a darker version, slightly different tone, but pretty much the same. And then I have the red colour, which I used, which essentially is a darker version of pink. I do know about colour theory. Forgive me if I say the wrong terms or things. I'm not an absolute expert on, you know, what's a tone, what's a like a shade, things like that. But essentially, to me, red and pink are basically the same colour. Pink is just a lighter version of red. That's how I kind of view it in this colour palette instance. So for me on this page, I've got brown and pink. Once I started doing that, I then thought about the snow, because that, for me, again, as part of the background, it's probably the next easiest thing to think of. And I had already used a kind of dusky purple in the background as kind of the shade colour, which you can't even really see, which is good. But I wanted to use it as part of the snow. Usually when I do snow, I just do grey and blue, but I wanted something a bit different, and you're probably not going to be able to see. But I basically used a blend of purple and blue and grey. So if I find these for you, this purple I'd already used in the background. So, you know, very similar to the pink, so they're closely linked together. Blue was the new tone or colour, and grey is a very muted colour essentially. It was more just the blender, so I didn't really count it. But those three all went together to create the snow in very light layers, I should add, because I didn't want the snow to come across as being overly colourful. I still wanted it to seem light and white. So that's what I've got so far. I could have made that look neater, but it's just for, you know, presenting it for you. So side note, this heart was one thing that I came across, and I thought, what am I going to do that in? What colour? Because I was thinking I could do it pink, I could do it red, but I've already got the pink in the background that would be right next to it. And I was starting to think about things that I wanted to add that could be red. So I went for brown because I'm not sure if you've heard of them. They're like the Lebkuchen, I think that's how you say it, that you get around Christmas. And it's just something that sparked my interest. I was like, oh yeah, I could do it brown because they're coated in chocolate. So that's how they kind of linked. So I've got brown evenly spread across the page. I've got a dark brown, and a little bit on this house up here. I decided to make that brown just so that it tied in with everything, and so I didn't have to add more colours. And then I've got obviously the gingerbread colour, which kind of is essential because of the gingerbread people, and also a little bit up here. And I think that's all the brown that I will do. Once I did that, one of the things during colouring the gingerbread people that I was a little bit stumped about was her dress, because I thought, well, it must still be gingerbread, but I wasn't too sure. Clara has such an amazing imagination, and I wasn't too sure how I would do it. So I decided to do the same brown colours but do a base of pink. So it's still a brown sort of colour, but it's got the pink, which was a really fun experiment to try. But obviously that's just blending together the brown that we already have and the pink that we already have, so it's not really a new colour. It still ties in with everything. So then comes the red. I wanted the berries to be red, I knew that. And then usually with clothing and stuff I get a bit stuck, and I'm not really sure what to do to still make it tie in. But in the end I went for the red again to tie in with what we already had. And then also I decided to make the hat red as well, because I like the idea of it being a matching hat and scarf. I used the colours that we already had for the snow to do the fur on the hat, which I love, and it's a new kind of technique I tried. So I did what Chris Cheng does. I do a burnished effect with the colours. Really dark, just normal colouring. And then I go over with a white gel pen and cover all of the black lines up, so that yes, it is white, but there's little like peaks of colour coming through. So that's how I achieved that. And to some degree that was how I did the snow as well, but I did it a lot lighter. So that's pretty much where I'm up to. I feel like I'm done with the colours that I've put down now. And it's got to a point where I'm stuck about the cat and probably this ribbon here as well. I'm certain that I want all of these leaves to be green, but I will talk a little bit about the type of green that I'm going to use just to help with the balancing of the page. So this is where I think it is a bit tricky with thinking about what you want a colour to be, because the cat could be lots of different things. I could make it realistic. I'm not sure if it is necessarily gingerbread, so I could potentially do it in the same colour, but then it will blend in too much. I'm thinking of playing on what I've already got, but adding a more orange tone in there, so that we've still got that sort of gingerbread colour, but with some brighter tones, so that it's more of kind of a ginger cat. I'm thinking that's the sort of thing I will do. Maybe even with a bit of a cream sort of colour to blend it. That's what I'm thinking. This is, just my process of, my thought process. And then the ribbon, I was thinking I could do it red again. We've got quite a lot of red. I would quite like to do a pinkish red, so that the red that we've got over here ties in with the pink of the background, but also so that they're not identical as well. I want to change it up a bit. Sorry if you can hear the banging in the background. So I used this Indian red colour on the hearts and for the shading, and I think that would work really well, blending it with the red that we've already got to create a slightly different shade. So that's my idea for that. So I haven't actually added any new colours to the mix. I'll probably do the ribbon up here the same as well. And then we've got the green. So I will talk about that, because that is something that I'm always wary of when adding a brand new colour, because I don't want it to kind of jar the page. I think I probably will use Castle Art, but if I just show you the variety that we've got here, we've got the cool greens, emerald sort of colours, and then we've got more muted olive greens. If I went for, let's go for the phthalo green light. If I used that colour in amongst everything else, it's coming up quite dark on camera, but it just wouldn't really go. unless I did it very, very lightly. That's not the sort of look I'm going for. Yes, it kind of goes with the blue because it's a bluish green, but the blue isn't all that visible when you look at the actual page. It's in the background. The white is predominant on that section. So I don't want to go for that. I want something more muted because brown in itself is quite a neutral colour. Maybe not so much the gingerbread colour, but the darker brown is. And I still want them to pop off the page more than anything else. So I am thinking the greens, the olive ones. And we've got this lovely terra verde sort of colour, which is very muted and almost has sort of a brownish grey tinge to it. So I think that could be a good shadow colour. And then possibly these olive sort of colours. And olive greens are very similar to brown in the sense that they have a lot more brown in than they do blue. So that could work very well. As a highlight colour, I'll probably use a very bright light green as a base, probably this castle green light, but you're not really, oh sorry, that's the wrong one, but you're probably not going to see it all that much. But that's what I'm thinking. So that's my live sort of rundown of what I'm thinking of doing for this page. So up until this point, I am kind of stumped with a few things, but sometimes just going through it, thinking about what you could potentially do does help. And at the end of this, I will actually only have a minimal amount of colours on my page, but I will have spread them out, actually thought about it. Sometimes I spend longer thinking about the colours and the colour palette and actually what colours I'm going to use than I do colouring time. But in the end, I think it pays off more. And if I had just gone with what I thought right at that second, that heart would have definitely been a reddish pink. That cake would have blended in too much with the gingerbread people. And the hat, I probably would have done a completely different colour. So I think it is worth, if you are stuck on a page, just thinking about what you could potentially do. So I hope that's helped. I'm hoping that each of these episodes will be slightly different to each other. They'll all be featuring different things. So this was a rare case page where it is halfway through it. Whereas next time when I actually begin a page, I'll talk about how I start a page, how I overcome the blankness of it and trying to figure out where to start, you know, what to colour first, what colours to use, overall colour palette, that sort of thing. So it should be fun for me and hopefully interesting. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. As I said, please feel free to leave any questions down below, or you can email me. And yeah, I really appreciate you watching. Thank you, and I will see you all in my next video. Take care, everyone. Bye.